Robert Duvall watched a waitress in a small Virginia diner get passed over by a table of 6 who left nothing. He watched her face when she picked up the empty check holder. He watched what she did with her face after. What he did in the next 4 minutes, before she came back to his table, is something she didn't fully understand until she was in her car in the parking lot. It was a Tuesday morning in May 2005, and the diner was a place called Maggie's on the main road through Flint Hill, Virginia, a town small enough that Maggie's was less a restaurant than a community institution, the kind of place where the coffee was kept hot all morning and the booths had the worn, smooth quality of furniture that has been sat in by the same people for years. Duvall had been stopping here occasionally since he bought the farm, not regularly enough to be a regular, but often enough that the woman behind the counter knew his order without asking. He had arrived at 9 and had been eating quietly at a corner booth since 9:15, with a newspaper and the particular unhurried quality of a Tuesday morning that imposes nothing. He had ordered what he always ordered here, eggs, toast, coffee that was refilled without being asked, and had settled into the corner with the specific ease of someone in a room that does not require anything of them, with a newspaper and the particular unhurried quality of a Tuesday morning that has no particular demands on it. The table of 6 had arrived at 9:20. They were a group of adults in their 40s and 50s, 6 people, 2 couples, and 2 individuals, the arrangement suggesting a reunion of some kind rather than a regular gathering. They had the ease of people who have known each other long enough that the conversation does not require effort, only continuity. They were not unkind people. They were people who were not thinking about their waitress, which is a different thing but produces similar results. The kind of group that arrives together, orders extensively, asks for modifications, and occupies a table for longer than their food requires, while conducting the kind of conversation that is clearly the real purpose of the gathering rather than the food. They had been loud in the pleasant way of people who know each other well and are happy to be together. They had run their waitress, a woman in her late 30s named Donna Sykes, who had been working at Maggie's for 11 years, back and forth between the kitchen and the table, with the unconscious entitlement of people who do not think about where their food comes from or who carries it. Donna had done all of it without complaint and without the particular visible strain that less experienced servers show when a table is working them hard. She had refilled coffees before they were asked for, caught the modification on the egg order before it went to the kitchen wrong, replaced a fork that had gone to the floor without making an event of it. She had, in short, done her job at a level that the table had not noticed, because good service is exactly what good service looks like: invisible, frictionless, present without being intrusive. At 10:40, the group had gathered their coats and bags and moved toward the door in the gradual conversational way of people who are still in the middle of their conversation, even as their bodies are preparing to leave. The energy of departure is different from the energy of arrival. Looser, slightly distracted, the attention already partly elsewhere. It is in this energy that the check is handled, quickly and approximately, and the check holder is left on the table with whatever the rapid arithmetic produced, which on this Tuesday morning had produced nothing, and moved toward the door in the gradual conversational way of people who are still talking even as they leave. The check had been placed in the middle of the table 15 minutes earlier. Someone had picked it up. Someone had done the math. Money had gone into the check holder in the rapid, approximate way of a large group splitting a bill, and the check holder had been left on the table. Duvall had been watching from the corner booth, not with the overt attention of someone who has decided to observe. That kind of watching announces itself and changes what it sees. With the peripheral continuous attention of someone who is reading a newspaper and whose eyes, in the spaces between sentences, register the room around them without directing themselves at it. He had seen the group arrive. He had watched the morning run its course at their table. He had seen what the morning cost Donna Sykes in the accumulated small physics of running a large table for 90 minutes. He had also seen what she brought to it, which was something the table had not seen because it was not looking. He had watched the group leave. He had watched Donna cross the room to the vacated table and pick up the check holder. He had watched her open it. He had watched her face. What happened on Donna Sykes's face in the 2 seconds after she opened the check holder was not dramatic. It was not the visible distress of someone experiencing something for the first time. It was something more contained and more honest than that. the expression of a woman absorbing a familiar disappointment with the efficiency of someone who has had a great deal of practice and who has learned that the efficiency is necessary, because the disappointment, if given room, would make the rest of the shift impossible. It was not visible from across the room to most people. It was not the dramatic expression of distress or anger that the situation might, in a more theatrical person, have produced. What it was a small, specific closing, a tightening around the eyes and a slight compression of the lips that was the expression of a woman who has just received a particular kind of disappointment that she has received before, and that she has learned to absorb quickly and completely, because the next table needs her, and the morning has not finished. She absorbed it in approximately 2 seconds. Then she straightened, gathered the dishes onto her tray with the efficient automatic movements of 11 years of practice, and turned back toward the kitchen. Duvall set down the newspaper. He had 4 minutes before Donna would finish in the kitchen and return to check on his table. He knew the rhythm of a diner this size. The time between clearing a table and returning to the floor was approximately 4 minutes on a Tuesday morning when the kitchen was not overwhelmed, which this kitchen was not. He had been watching the morning long enough to know the rhythm. He used the 4 minutes. He took his bill from the edge of the table and looked at it. The total was modest: eggs, toast, 3 coffees. He turned the receipt over. He found the pen in his jacket pocket, the habit of decades, always a pen, always something nearby to write on, and he thought for a moment about what he wanted to say. Not long. He was not someone who required long to know what he wanted to say. He was someone who required long to decide whether saying it was the right thing, and he had already decided. He turned it over. He found a pen in his jacket pocket. He usually had one. He was someone who wrote things down, and he wrote something on the back of the receipt. Not long, 4 lines. Then he counted out what he owed for his meal and what he was leaving on the table, and he added to the pile everything he had in his wallet that was cash. He did not count it as he put it down. He took it out and put it down, and he put the receipt face down on top of the stack with the written side up, and he stood, and he put on his jacket, and he walked to the counter and told the woman there that he was leaving his money on the table. Then he walked out. Donna Sykes came back from the kitchen at 11:03. She crossed the room to Duvall's corner booth. She found the stack on the table, the bills, and on top of them, the receipt face down with something written on the back. She picked up the receipt first, which was not her usual order. Usually she would have cleared the money into her apron and then looked at the check, but something about the face-down placement made her pick it up first. She read what was on the back. She stood at the corner booth of Maggie's Diner on a Tuesday morning in May and read 4 lines that a stranger had written on the back of a breakfast receipt. She's never said publicly what those 4 lines were. She's been asked over the years by her daughter and by 2 or 3 people she is trusted enough to tell the story to. She has declined each time in the quiet way of someone who has decided that the specific words belong to her and are not for general circulation. What she has said each time is that the 4 lines were not about the tip. They were not about the group who had left nothing. They were about something she had not known anyone outside her own kitchen had seen, which was the specific quality of the work she did and what it cost her and why she still did it as well as she did. She stood at the booth for a moment after reading. Then she put the receipt in her apron pocket. Then she went back to work, because the 9:30 table needed their check and the 11 o'clock rush was beginning, and Maggie's on a Tuesday had its own rhythm that did not pause for the things that happened inside it. The Tuesday continued. The 11 o'clock rush was smaller than the 10 o'clock had been. Tuesdays at Maggie's had their own pattern, the morning heavier than the midday, the afternoon light. Donna worked her tables, refilled her coffees, ran her checks, moved through the hours with the practiced economy of someone who has been doing this long enough that the work lives in the body rather than the mind. She was in her car in the parking lot at 2:15 at the end of her shift when she took the receipt out of her apron pocket and read it again. The second reading was different from the first, slower, with the space that a shift's end provides, with the particular quality of attention that arrives when the adrenaline of a working morning has finally left the body. She sat in the car for 20 minutes. She did not know who had written the 4 lines. She had not recognized him. She was not someone who went to the movies regularly, and the face in the corner booth had not connected on a Tuesday morning in May when she was running a large table and making coffee and doing the 100 other things the morning required to any name she would have known. She knew only what the 4 lines had said, and that whoever had written them had seen something that nobody else in the room had seen, which was not a small thing. She was not someone who went to the movies, and the name Robert Duvall would not have connected in 2005 to the man in the corner booth. She knew only that someone had been watching her work with enough attention to see past the surface of it, and had found a way to say so that had nothing to do with money, even though there was money involved. What she knew, sitting in the car in the parking lot on a Tuesday afternoon in May, was that the receipt was going into her apron pocket and staying there. She did not examine this decision. It was not the kind of decision that required examination. Some things you keep. This was one of them. She found out who he was 6 weeks later when a coworker mentioned having seen a man who looked like him at the counter. The coworker had a better memory for faces than Donna did. The name that went with the face produced, when Donna looked it up, the specific reorganization that Carol Schaffer would experience 2 years later at a kitchen table in Luray. She has tried occasionally to understand why the receipt matters more than the money did. The money mattered, she will say this directly, without embarrassment, because she deals honestly with practical realities. But the money is not what she thinks about when she thinks about that Tuesday. The money she spent, the receipt she kept, the cash said he felt sorry. The 4 lines said he was paying attention. Those are different things. The second one is the harder one to receive. She still has the receipt. It is not framed, not displayed, not treated as an artifact. It is in the small ceramic dish on her dresser where she puts the things from her pockets at the end of the day. The receipts, the coins, the folded notes. It has been there since May 2005. She puts other things in the dish and takes them out when she needs them. The receipt stays. She has worked at Maggie's for 30 years. She's never been asked if she would have done anything differently, knowing who was in the corner booth. She has considered the question privately, in the way that people consider questions they know they will never be asked directly. Her answer, arrived at without particular drama, is no. She would have done the same work the same way. She always has. That is the point, she thinks, that the work was worth seeing, not because of who was watching, but because it was the work. The watching just confirmed what was already true. She still makes the coffee the same way. She still refills before being asked. She still catches the modification before it goes to the kitchen wrong. She still makes the coffee the same way. If this story reminded you that being truly seen at work, not managed, not thanked, but actually seen, is one of the rarest things one person can give another, subscribe, leave a comment, and hit the notification bell. More stories about who Robert Duvall really was in the moments between everything else are coming every single week.